A few whispers were the beginning of it all. Before anyone could blink, the internet was ablaze with blog articles. The name Yandy Smith Harris, which has long been associated with love and loyalty, is currently at the center of a storm that she never anticipated. Dodgy interviews, leaked footage, and now the possibility that her own inner circle is betraying her. As if it were a courtroom statement, fans nationwide are rewatching that poolside moment, dissecting every word, every breath, each glance. However, neither Erica Banks nor the outsiders are to blame for the true hurt. It comes from Rashida. What was once a friendship that stood the test of time is now being referred to as the ultimate betrayal. Yandy's voice wavered, but not because she was afraid. It was amazement, bewilderment, and hurt. She wasn't only protecting herself from online criticism. She was protecting herself against a person she used to call her sister. Rashida's reaction was icy and disinterested, as if the play had been practiced behind her back. Fans are yelling because of the timing, the tone, and the ... We're not claiming that this is true. Is this the start of a complete breakdown in friendship? Or is there more going on behind the scenes than we are aware of? Let's begin. Yandy Y put her hand against the sliding door's cool glass. Pale light spilt across her terrace as she watched the sunrise. The silence inside felt heavy, too heavy, for someone whose entire existence was centered on every rumor and whisper. Her phone was on the table beside her the morning after the video went viral, buzzing sporadically with notifications she wasn't yet ready to read. It seemed like yesterday to her when she recalled the event. Rashida's lips twitched in a barely held sneer when Erica Banks dropped that phrase. Fans were able to freeze frame the treachery because the camera lingered long enough. Now, those freeze frames were all over the place, appearing like a public execution on blogs and gossip channels. She had made a living by being genuine and sharing her life with millions of viewers who trusted her to be honest. She had established a reputation for being unvarnished by sharing her joys, scars, and vulnerabilities. However, this well-executed cut seemed too accurate to be real. Despite being only 2 minutes long, the clip had been altered, circulated, again, hyped up, and accompanied by menacing captions and dramatic music. The end of Yandy's life begins. Within the betrayal, Rashida was consistently asnic. It was all unconfirmed. It was all untrue. Nevertheless, as though the pixelated treachery were gospel, supporters clicked, shared, and left comments. Her direct messages flooded. Some of the messages expressed sympathy. "Queen, you have our support." Some were brutal. "You were played." Rashida revealed who she really was. "What caused your blindness?" Yandy disregarded each of them. She was not prepared for self-defense. Rather, she repeatedly reenacted the scene. When she attempted to express Erica's viewpoint, her voice faltered. The small twist of Rashida's head just before she retaliated. It had been an informal retreat discussion, a private moment between two friends. It had been leaked. It had been desired by someone to go public. All of a sudden, her private life was in the headlines, remembering all the times she and Rashida had laughed until their sides ached. Yandy reflected of the evenings when they shared secrets over wine glasses, of the private discussions about marriage and motherhood. When she learned that Mendes's had been the subject of examination, she recalled Rashida reassuring her and encouraging her to remain strong for their kids. Rashida had sounded sincere, sisterly, and devoted during those times. However, that loyalty appeared to be vanishing in the video. Yandy's understanding of how fans thrive on controversy grew as she gave it more thought. After seeing a video, they added their own beliefs to fill in the gaps, claiming that Rashida and Erica had conspired to set Yandy up for failure. Breakdowns were shown by conspiracy channels, which paused and zoomed in on Rashida's facial expressions, interpreting each one as proof of a covert plan. The distinction between fact and fiction became hazy. The comment sections became so heated by each fresh interpretation that it became impossible to discern the true events. Yandy knew she couldn't remain silent indefinitely as she struggled with her thoughts. Reclaiming her story was something she owed to herself. She was afraid, however, that any remarks she made would only feed the rumors. She pictured speaking directly to the audience while on camera, her heart racing. She insisted that there had been no betrayal and that the conversation with Rashida had been misconstrued. She also claimed that Erica's name had been mentioned in passing. She paused, though unsure if that strategy would come across as staged, phony, as though she were merely containing the damage rather than speaking from the heart. While she was still undecided, another blow struck. A brief snippet of a garbled audio message that allegedly included Rashida's voice surfaced online. The background noise suggested a private location, the kind of hush one expects in a backroom recording, and the familiar tone urged, "Let her unravel in public. Let her look crazy." Fans turned rumors into a presumption by sharing the video with #RHEDA did it trending. There was a hollow ache in Yandy's chest. She intended to contact Rashida to make a demand, an explanation, but she was afraid that her request would be met with silence. A few weeks prior, she had casually invited Rashida to join her for a family dinner, and she recalled the text exchange. Rashida had responded succinctly, "Not able to make it, busy." Yandy didn't give it much thought at the time. People have responsibilities and schedules. But the quick dismissal seemed like a door being slammed shut. She questioned whether Rashida had been avoiding her the entire time, posing as a friend while subtly attacking her. The treachery was more profound than any public smear could have been. Over time, the murmurs accumulated into an unavoidable clamor. Fans' hot takes and countdowns were placed on gossip pages every day. The top 5 responses to Yandy's breakdown: was Yandy betrayed by Rashida? In the comments, viewers who had previously supported her questioned whether they had miscalculated her personality, whether her confidence was a facade, and whether she had lied to preserve her reputation. It seemed intrusive, like if someone were looking for flaws in her thinking with a torch. She felt vulnerable, raw, and exposed. Mendices discovered her in the kitchen that afternoon, holding a cold coffee mug. As she shuddered, he put his arms around her and held her. He brought to her mind their shared history and the foundation they had established. He talked about their commitment, their children, and their future. However, he also exhorted her to take charge, to speak up, and to speak the truth. He had complete faith in her. Yandy was aware that his assistance was essential, yet it was insufficient to stop the online uproar. Later, she had more work to do. She opened a blank document in her writing corner, alone. She paused after typing a few sentences and then erased them. Uncertain whether her remarks would come out as defensive or genuine, she wrote again. She wanted to offer her side of the story without adding to the drama by expressing her hurt without coming across as resentful. Rashida's quiet struck her as a difficulty, a conflict she had to fight for her own identity as well as her reputation. She needed to be reminded of her true self, a woman who believed in loyalty, fought for her loved ones, and treasured the truth. Yandy finally composed a brief message as the sun began to set, illuminating the windows with a golden glow, just an honest assessment of the hurt caused by seeing private moments twisted for clicks, no names or accusations. She acknowledged the cruel rumors, thanked the followers who supported her, and pleaded for understanding. It was a fine line, strong but vulnerable, firm but sympathetic. Anticipating the response, she shared it on her channels. Notifications appeared on her screen a few moments later, supporting her and praising her bravery. Some fans came together. Others brushed her remarks aside as planned. She was aware that both reactions were unavoidable. However, Yandy experienced a brief moment of respite. She had been honest. She had made a stand based on honesty rather than resentment or guilt. She had recovered a part of herself from the turmoil, even if the drama was far from over. The following morning, Yandy awoke to the constant hum of her phone. She discovered that her feeds were flooded with sensational articles and irate comments in place of kind greetings. Yandy was taken by surprise. Fans demand answers. Rashida's actual nature became apparent with each notification, which seemed like a further setback. She was unable to turn away, though public's insatiable desire for drama heightened the hurt of betrayal. With trembling hands, she poured herself a cup of coffee and attempted to control her breathing. She was aware that she needed to confront this head-on. However, she was more afraid of facing her best friend Rashida than she was of any online criticism. She was scrolling when she came across a brand new video, with dramatic images and menacing music from one of the largest gossip channels. They had cut together screenshots of that distorted voice note, Rashida's smirk, and Yandy's vulnerable moment during the retreat. The host conjectured that Rashida had planned the whole thing, utilizing Yandy as being discredited by using Erica Banks as a pawn. Even some Yandy supporters started to doubt everything since the story was so gripping. Yandy pressed her lips together as she felt a knot tighten in her chest. There was more to this than rumors. It was about seeing strangers rewrite her reality. She consented to meet Mendices at their preferred coffee shop later that day. She sat opposite him and made Ash smiled and fought back tears. He put his warm fingers over hers and reached across the table. "You don't have to do this alone," he muttered under his breath. She nodded, appreciating his steadfast assistance. However, she was aware that he couldn't shield her from a world that was ravenous for treachery. In order to uncover the truth behind the leaked clips, he encouraged her to collect proof. He advised her to invite anyone who was present at the retreat and saw the actual conversation to speak up. In an attempt to uncover a hint that could clear her identity, they collectively went through group images and conversations. Rashida, meanwhile, was struggling with her own issues across town. She had withdrawn into silence after the video became viral, perhaps unable to deal with the consequences. Calls and messages seeking explanations swamped her phone. In her direct messages, fans wrote, "How could you? I thought you were real." Some even threatened to kill her. As she realized that her reputation was at stake, she read each one in increasing panic. The spotlight had always been fun for Rashida, but this time it seemed different. The feud wasn't staged to boost ratings. It hurt, and Jit was genuine. She often reminded herself that the clip had been misunderstood and that there had been no attempt to betray Yandy. However, she secretly questioned whether she had erred in not standing up for Yandy. At home, Yandy hovered her fingertips over the submit button while she composed a message for Rashida. She sought clarification. She was curious as to why Rashida had allowed the story to get out of hand without offering any defense. She hesitated before typing, "We need to talk. I need to understand why you stayed silent." She swallowed the lump in her throat and sent the message, asking, what if Rashida never responded? What if their friendship was irrevocably broken? Unread. The message remained in her outbox. The online storm became worse in the days that followed. Supporters choose sides. While some demand a public apology from Rashida, others charge Yandy with inciting unrest. #T, my Andy #S trended #RASHEDA, achieved #friendship aims. It was a nasty division. Even when new people came to Yandy's channel to watch the drama unfold, she saw her following diminish. Her fortitude seemed to be put to the test with each new remark. She reminded herself of her identity as a strong lady who had established an honest community. However, constant pressure can cause even the strongest walls to crumble. Yandy paused one evening while getting ready to respond to the rumors on a live webcast. She was aware off required more than feelings. She required information. She sent private messages to a few retreat participants, begging for their opinions. The majority gave evasive promises of support in response, but Tasha, one buddy, eventually opened out. Tasha wrote in a voice note about the day Erica had said something in passing. Rashida had laughed, and Keen had reacted with sincere hurt. But not with malice, just astonishment and incredulity. Yandy felt a glimmer of hope when Tasha became clear. She became aware that the video had been altered to amplify Rashida's laughter and to silence her subsequent attempts to comfort Yandy. With the help of Tasha's testimony, Yandy put together a brief collection of uncut video that contrasts the edited betrayal clip with scenes demonstrating Rashida's anxiety. It gave a very different impression. A fleeting grin, more startled than schadenfreude, and then a sincere effort to soothe Yandy. This fresh, uncut film seemed to be the truth she had to tell. She carefully practiced her phrases. Just a cool, collected explanation of what actually transpired behind the scenes, without any finger-pointing or shouting matches. Yandy inhaled deeply on the day of her live stream, sat in front of glanced straight at the lens of the camera. With unflinching composure, she played the unedited footage, introduced Tasha's voice note, and narrated the events. Silently, the audience watched as the story unfolded in front of them. The betrayal footage seemed less significant and smaller. Rashida's chuckle changed from one of derision to one of surprise at the sudden change. As Yandy talked about the hurt of feeling abandoned by a friend and the value of getting the whole story before making judgments, her voice remained calm. Reactions came flooding in. Many expressed regret for making snap judgments and acknowledged that sensational editing had influenced them. Others commended Yandy's poise and described her explanation as refreshingly truthful. Yandy briefly felt validated when the #MyAndy hashtag returned to the top trends, but she realized that more than a video would be needed for real healing. Face-to-face confrontation with Rashida would need time and effort. She got an SMS notice that afternoon. At last, Rashida had responded. "I apologize," Rashida texted. Yandy's heart raced. "Never should have let this go unchecked. Can we talk?" These simple words seemed like a tremor before an earthquake after days of silence. Was this a new chapter in the continuing drama, or the beginning of reconciliation, with the weight of the moment bearing down on her? She gazed at the screen and typed back, "Let's meet." As she sent the message, Yandy realized that sometimes speaking the truth saves stories in the reality drama genre. We have a lot to clear up. However, some issues are only resolved when people have the guts to extend forgiveness. Yandy reached the charming little cafe on the corner of Buckhead, according to ChatGPT. Her heart pounded in her chest like a drum. As she entered, the bell above the door jingled quietly, and she looked about the brightly lit room until she saw Rashida seated by herself at a corner table. Rashida stood stiffly, her shoulders squared, her gaze briefly focused on the latte before her. Neither one said anything. With each stride laden with years of friendship, secrets, and silent disappointments, Yandy made her way across the room and slipped into the seat across from Rashida. Between them, there was silence, thicker than any online accusation. Yandy said, "Thanks for meeting me," in a voice that was hardly audible above a whisper. Rashida looked up, a half-smile that fell short of her eyes. Yandy inhaled a trembling breath and whispered, "We need to clear the air. I need to speak with you directly because the blogs gave the impression that you were betraying me by organizing this behind my back." A chilling wind of they exchanged expectations. Rashida's fingers moved over the rim of her cup before she spoke, her voice cautious. She whispered, "I never wanted anyone to get hurt. You in particular." Yandy's chest constricted. She had practiced a lot of opening statements and accusations. "Please demand the truth." However, after hearing Rashida's kind apology, I felt both honoring and relaxing. "So why didn't you say anything?" she inquired. "Why did I allow everyone to think I was unstable? That there was a complex setup involved." Rashida looked aside for a moment. "I was scared," she whispered. Afraid of making matters worse. It took a moment for the confession to sink in. Yandy blinked as if she had never seen Rashida before. Not only the self-assured businesswoman she had seen on screen, however, a woman battling her own regrets and fears. "What are you afraid of?" Yandy applied pressure, but her voice grew softer. The pain still shuddered at what she said. Rashida opened her mouth and took a deep drink. "I thought silence would protect us both," she admitted, her eyes sparkling. "But when the clip dropped, I didn't know how to defend you without drawing more attention." Yandy felt a lump form in her throat. In this moment of truth, Yandy realized that even the strongest loyalties can falter when fear takes hold. "Fear doesn't excuse silence," Yandy replied, her voice steady but wounded. "It leaves me questioning everything." She recalled all the times Rashida had jumped to her defense, posting supportive stories on Instagram and calling off camera to check in. Those moments felt genuine. "I've always had your back. I've been there when your world crumbled. I sheltered you in the storm. Why did you think you had to face this alone?" she said, leaning forward and reaching for Rashida's hand. "I felt betrayed by the whole situation," she said, her fingers curling around Yandy's. "And I wasn't sure if I could trust my own instincts," Rashida said, her voice breaking. "I wasn't sure whether I could support your position without appearing to be repairing the damage." Yandy's mind raced as they sat in silent contemplation, the din of other customers filling the void left by her candor. "If you just told me how you felt," Yandy whispered. She recalled the voice note, the distorted laughter, the edit that magnified Rashida's every reaction, the endless flood of comments, the snake emojis, the subtle jabs, and the messages from mutual friends who stayed silent, unwilling to risk joining her side. Now that she was confronted with Rashida's vulnerability, she wondered if any excuse could heal the rift that had been created. In that moment, Yandy wanted to forgive, to believe in the strength of their relationship, to remember the laughter and sincere confessions they shared. Rashida nodded, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I know," she said, her voice choking. "I'm sorry. More than anything, I'm sorry." "It's not that simple," Yandy said gently but firmly. "I need time." Rashida's shoulders slumped as she gazed at their entwined hands, realizing that forgiveness would not take away the public spectacle or the pain of feeling abandoned during her most vulnerable moment. Yandy pulled her palm back, tears welling up in her eyes, and she murmured, "Own your part in this." "I'll wait," she continued, her voice barely audible. "I'll do whatever it takes." The steam rising from their coffees was like a brittle bridge between them. "I'll take care of Miss Hyde. I think people will pay attention if we both speak from the heart." Rashida nodded, a determined spark in her eyes, and said, "You're right, I'll post a statement." I'll admit I stayed silent out of fear. For a brief time, it appeared as though she may block, fearing another scandal, fearing more attention. Thank you, Yandy said, her relief mixed with sadness as she exhaled. That means everything. I'll explain how much our friendship means to me. Over the course of the following hour, they worked together to construct a succinct, sincere message. The two sat back, the tension relaxing slightly, but neither missed how strange the air felt between them, now a clear but delicate dot. Their collaboration was awkward, and at first, years of trust had been tested. Rashida wrote her words with sincerity, apologizing for her silence, acknowledging Yandy's pain, and promising to support her publicly. Yandy offered to share a follow-up clip that clarified the retreat conversation to show how quickly the moment had been twisted. They debated phrasing, making sure neither sounded defensive or contrived, as the evening light started to settle on the streets. The weight of their confession lingered, but so did a tentative hope. Yandy felt the familiar surge of determination return, and she realized that this was more than just a battle for her reputation. The words felt heavy, but with each sentence, a small piece of their friendship was being rebuilt. Rashida walked alongside her, in friendly silence, both enjoying and fearing the next steps. That evening, Rashida shared her statement on social media. There was no elaborate production, no dramatic video, just her voice, honest and unvarnished, and fans responded right away. It was a battle for her truth, for her bonds. I believe. Her Yandy released her clip compilation, which contrasted the edited betrayal scene with real moments of concern and support. Commenters expressed surprise, apologized, and asked why she hadn't spoken sooner. However, the statement caused a shift in the narrative, which started to tilt back towards nuance. In a war of rumors, Yandy knew that healing would take time, even as the online storm subsided. She and Rashida still had long nights ahead, private conversations to mend Disi's leftover pain, and moments of doubt to navigate. But for the first time since the clip surfaced, there was forward momentum, a small victory. This feels real. Friendship goals. Fragile but essential. Ren. In the days that followed, Yandy found herself thinking about the nature of trust in the public eye and came to the realization that loyalty isn't just about standing up when it's easy, but also about speaking up when it's hardest. For Rashida, the most important step had been having the courage to acknowledge her fear and apologize. As the two women faced their vulnerabilities, they created a renewed bond and a deeper understanding of how easy friendship can break. As the online world would eventually move on to the next headline, Yandy and Rashida would carry this lesson that true loyalty is tested not in agreement, but in the courage to face each other's failures and still choose to rebuild. The real drama wasn't the betrayal clip or the distorted voice note, but rather the quiet moments of confrontation and confession. Tears and apologies of two friends risking everything to reclaim their truth. Fans were reacting with relief. I'm glad they worked it out. After public statements, the world seemed calmer, as if the storm had passed. Yandy sat at her kitchen table, sunlight dancing on the surface of her untouched coffee mug, and scrolled through her social feeds. Rashida's apology post and the joint video had created a new narrative, the truth behind the poolside clip, the fear that had silenced Rashida, and the resilient bond between two women who chose honesty over spectacle. Yandy tapped lightly on the screen, reading comments that encouraged her to move on, to close the chapter, but deep down she felt the weight of every unspoken word and every tear that had fallen in that cafe. This feels real. Friendship goals. But Yandy knew the real work was just getting started. Rebuilding trust wasn't a one-day project, and forgiveness was a journey rather than a destination. After driving to the wellness retreat location later that afternoon, where the drama had taken place, Yandy strolled through the gardens, breathing in the aroma of the magnolias in bloom, and recalled how she and Rashida had once laughed under these trees. She stopped at the fountain where Erica Banks had made her casual comment, and the memory stung less now, replaced by a greater comprehension of how perception can be manipulated. Across town, Rashida faced her own reflection in a similar fountain, at her favorite yoga studio, pressing her cheek to the cool stone edge and closing her eyes. Replaying her apology video, wondering if she had said too much or too little. The backlash had come quickly, with some viewers accusing her of being forced into the apology. She silently promised herself to be more careful about protecting her truth and her peace, keeping in mind that even the closest friends can falter under pressure. Rashida silently acknowledged each, clutching at the strands of reconciliation she had attempted to weave the day before, as she combed through messages. encouraging texts from longtime friends, cautious responses from mutual acquaintances, and private notes from Yandy's fans. Others commended her courage. Mendices was there to provide steady support, while a few close friends listened respectfully as Yandy and Rashida talked openly about the fallout, recounting the fear, the silence, and the slow realization that their bond was stronger than the rumors. Yandy admitted her lingering doubts as they reconnected over dinner at Yandy's house. Simple dishes, familiar faces. I was afraid of making things worse, she murmured quietly, and Rashida nodded, acknowledging her own anxiety. I was worried about hidden agendas. Everybody at the table recognized the seriousness of the situation. It wasn't a glitzy reality show twist, but a sincere reckoning that none of them would soon forget. They laughed awkwardly, the tension releasing as they revealed their vulnerabilities. Yandy focused on content creation in the days that followed, using the genuineness of their reunion as inspiration to write a series of videos. Thinking back on the deeper lessons of transparency and trust, she asked Rashida to co-host a casual conversation in which they talked about how the poolside clip had been edited, how fear can silence even the closest allies, and how forgiveness requires courage. Their conversation flowed with humor and warmth, interspersed with sincere confessions. I should have called you that night. Watchers reacted enthusiastically, applauding the unadulterated honesty and lack of staged drama, while gossip channels that had previously aired the betrayal clip now found themselves frantically trying to adjust. Some uploaded reaction videos to Yandy and Rashida's joint apology, providing analysis of every nuance in their body language, while others reluctantly changed tone, admitting how quickly they had stoked a narrative without full context. When friends fall out, how fear becomes a villain. A popular commentator lamented how the rush for clicks had overshadowed genuine care. Yandy watched these developments with a mixture of vindication and sadness, feeling vindicated that the truth had finally been heard and sad that their private pain had become fodder for so many. As the weeks stretched into months, Yandy and Rashida gradually re-established their friendship. They invited fans to see their story firsthand by arranging a joint appearance at a women's empowerment event and recording a podcast episode in which they discussed the value of speaking up, asking for help, and facing betrayal with empathy. Their platform changed from sensational headlines to heartfelt conversation, and viewers praised their fortitude and willingness to be vulnerable in a field that only spectacle. But the journey was not without its setbacks, with the occasional stray comment or re-emerging snippet of the original betrayal clip raising new questions. Rashida would see posts accusing her of faking remorse, and Yandy would receive private messages asking whether the unity was real or just a performance. In those moments, they leaned on each other, repeating the same assurances they had exchanged in that cafe were real, they reminded themselves. One day, a young fan who had been profoundly impacted by the saga wrote to Yandy about her own friendships and how her fear of conflict had caused a rift with her best friend. The fan thanked Yandy and Rashida for exemplifying the value of open communication and forgiveness. Yandy held the message close to her chest, tears in her eyes, and realized that their story was worth fighting for. On the anniversary of the contentious video, Yandy and Rashida released a contemplative video called From Betrayal to Sisterhood, in which they recapped significant moments, including the poolside conversation, the painful silence, the cafe confession, the joint apology, and the ongoing healing process. It was more than just personal drama. It was a lesson in vulnerability, empathy, and the difficult task of re-establishing trust. They openly discussed how fear can be a wedge between people, how public narratives can distort private truths, and how choosing authenticity can transform even the darkest moments. Their tone was measured and calm, and their words were laced with hope for the future and gratitude for the lessons learned. Yandy's voice broke the fourth wall as the anniversary video's closing moments rolled. You deserve the whole story. If you're feeling betrayed, hurt, or alone, real friendship can endure anything as long as you're ready to risk honesty. Rashida nodded next to her and said, and if you ever feel scared to speak up, remember you're not alone. The opportunity to express your truth and the bravery to ask questions are essential. Don't let fear keep you from speaking up. Reach out and speak your mind. The film concluded with a straightforward invitation. Yandy and Rashida watched in silent satisfaction as thousands of fans shared their own stories of betrayal and reconciliation, transforming the comments section into a place of collective healing and a testament to the power of vulnerability. Share your story in the comments. Let's support each other." The response was immediate and profound, understanding that their traumatic experience had turned into a lighthouse for others, negotiating the difficulties of friendship and trust. Ultimately, the true tale was not the widely circulated rumors or the manipulated betrayal video. It was the decision to confront fear, the readiness to express regret, and the choice to reconstruct. That evening, when the screen's light faded, Yandy shut off her laptop and looked out over her shoulder. Rashida was reading fan comments. They had a mutual understanding smile, an unspoken recognition of their progress. No screenplay, no producer, just a group of pals bound by the truth. No eye-catching headlines, more robust for together. They have endured the storm.